We are live.
Are we on?
I believe so.
Great. Green room. Boy, we got so much to talk about.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey, hold on. I got to get my sweatshirt off. It's cold out this morning.
It's lovely outside.
Listen, I know you native Floridians love it. This takes me
native
back.
Floridian. I'm native Bostonian.
Well, that's true. But you've been down here longer than I.
Yeah,
takes me back to the days of the ER where you had to come in and you had to knock off your boots and all that.
Oh my God. Love it, love it, love
Literally
it.
had to hire another employee in the ER to keep the floors all mopped because you don't want anybody slipping and
Slushy,
sliding. But anyway, I got to
slush
take off my Cleveland Browns 8-3, everybody. Cleveland Browns sweatshirt because I still have it on. Listen, welcome everybody to the green room. We're really excited this morning. I know Michelle's going to join us. Yep, for sure. In a few moments, and I'm so excited to have her in, and we'll introduce her when she gets. Because we have so much to talk about
politically. We have other things.
Oh my God!
About,
well, it is the green room, of course,
yes.
and
so we'll start off on politics. So
well,
where should we begin?
You know, the truth. Listen, the truth is the truth. The truth hurts. I have no doubt that what we're seeing is the real Donald Trump throughout this entire process, which is the child, the 7-year-old, mentality of that somehow has been running our country for 4 years. And listen, we have 40 whatever days to get through it.
And protect and save the Constitution.
Who's he going to pardon, Ruta?
Oh, he's
going to pardon himself.
Pardon? And who can pardon? Like,
why do you pardon somebody if you haven't done anything wrong?
Well, because you know his kids are gonna know what they've done. So
I don't know what. Oh, well, we know what, I don't know.
There's a lot of conflict of what they've done in the past and even him, but it'd be, again, everything is always unprecedented with Donald Trump. And I'm kind of over it already. Cause it's like, even if he pardons himself, they're like, oh, it's unprecedented. Well, this dude has been unprecedented the whole entire time. One thing that we have to talk about too is COVID. The numbers are through the roof. We have the president having open houses right now for holiday time, inviting all the supporters in, and they're basically just doing super spreader events. So just ridiculous.
Okay, so to me, I think it just goes back to the honest truth and what the issue has been with our president from the get-go, and especially with the coronavirus issue, because he's literally on tape, as he's been in many other instances throughout his presidency, telling things that we know that haven't been the truth. But in this case, you have Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and the others literally behind him at the press conference, and literally right afterwards saying, no, the virus will not be gone in the fall. Okay,
they said it all along. They gave the numbers, and now the numbers yesterday was the highest ever. We had more in one day than Japan has had for the whole entire COVID season.
And we weren't rounding the curve during the election, and people, it hasn't gone away. It hasn't gone away.
It's not gone away, and honestly, it's such a burden on our system, on the EMS systems, on the hospital systems, the nurses, the physicians, everyone's so
you know what,
tired.
Ruta, it's so interesting because listen, everybody knows it, watches the green room, of course, that Ruta is a COVID survivor. Her mom as well. How's your mom doing, by the way?
She's great.
Super. So the point is this: it's one of the things about this virus that makes it such a difficult process to get a handle on, because many people do get the virus. The vast majority, they do well, but the massive numbers of people that get the virus overwhelm the hospital systems to the extent of the capacity to take care of those that are truly ill to needing that hospital care. So those that don't believe in the virus or think that it's quote unquote just the flu, okay, need to get off that mark, because there's too many people that have just that flu.
Saying, and I don't wish anyone ill will ever, obviously, but to those who do say it's just a flu and things, God forbid somebody, you or your family members, get it. And it's so disrespectful to the families who are fighting for having family members who are in the ICU, who are fighting for their life. And it stems from the presidency, because he's the leader of this country, and he's basically dictating the way a lot of these people think, and it's incorrect. And
listen, we thanked him last week, and we need to stand up for him today as our front line healthcare workers. We need to take them into the consideration as
They're
the
exhausted.
soldiers, the frontline
They're
soldiers in
dying.
this
They're
battle.
they're getting COVID. They're dying. It's their story.
Listen,
after
there's acute,
story.
there's chronic, okay, there's long-lasting issues in every hospital system. We may lose rural hospitals over this,
Altogether.
okay, altogether.
Yeah.
And to me, and just once again, hearkening it back to our leadership, it's taking it to the Republican leadership in Georgia now, who's having to stand up firmly and speak to our president to say, you must speak, you must pull your supporters back. Okay,
He's saying it's dangerous. These are
he's a
he's a
Republican
Republican, and
leaders.
he's saying this is dangerous rhetoric, and it is dangerous rhetoric.
And it
It's
stems
very
from the
dangerous.
truth, but it all stems from the telling of the truth. And that's what I fear about the next 2 years in this country, Ruta, is that we need to all get a mutual truth back together about our elections, about our health care, about this specific virus, because we can't continue to exist on we're rounding the curve. It's going to go away. It's not going to be here in the fall. Mr. President, not so. And you saw Dr. Atlas, okay? I want to call him Mr. Atlas, okay? Dr. Scott Atlas has now gone back to Stanford, which he really was never on faculty of, by the way. That was a long ago appointment. Okay, so he's gonna what, crawl back into whatever his deal, and you had the news conference or whatever it was yesterday with those attorneys or whatever, literally calling for governmental workers, okay, to be drawn, quartered, and shot.
Did you see
Okay,
the
and
comment
Dawn?
by the pardoned Michael Flynn?
I did not.
Holy cow. He's actually saying we need to implement martial law into this country
I saw the headline. I didn't read
so
the
that
article.
we can bring back and do another election. Martial law. This is Michael Flynn. The guy also should be in a straitjacket at this point.
So
Never
let's
mind,
talk about
or an
pardons.
orange suit,
So let's
but
talk about these pardons, because can you really presumptively pardon against, I don't know. I mean, what does that say? What does that mean?
Actually, there is a precedent. So actually Richard Nixon did set precedents on it. So you can pre-pardon, you can. It has been done in the past. So I think they're using that loophole that it has been done in the past. And you know, Donald Trump loves loopholes, and so does his attorneys. So they did find a precedence for it. It did happen in the Richard Nixon administration. So they do have precedents. So
one of the things that really
happen.
I don't understand about Trump Nation, and I have a lot of friends, and maybe they're watching, and they'll explain this to me next time I see him. Why are you so willing to accept the fact that he and his family and his cronies can get away with things that you cannot in business? And I can't wait until Michelle joins us so that we can talk about the state medical board and the things that we have to face and whatever. And thank God we're getting our research done, you know. But the point is, we need to follow the rules. If we don't follow the rules, I'm well understanding that, believe me, I'm going to lose my license.
I always find this mind-boggling about the supporters of Donald Trump to begin with. The fact that this man has nothing in common with like 99% of the population of people who voted for him. He really does not. And he doesn't care. He doesn't. He protects himself and his family, himself above all. And that's it. He has a very close-knit circle of his family trust. Outside of that, he really, truly does not care about anybody. He's a narcissist, and it's been proven throughout his whole lifetime. It's not new that because he's president. He's had this pattern forever, and he's stiffed his workers. And I'm sorry, if you're the construction guy who worked on his Trump Tower and you killed yourself working there from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. and at the end of the day you didn't get paid, and you couldn't pay your crews, and your crews went home and they didn't get paid, you know, think about it. You know, no one else can get it. Like you said, no one else can get away with it. He has. And the only hope that I have, and I really do, is these news stations and news outlets who keep this propaganda up. It's like, it is like state television, and it's frightening that they're pumping in a message that of lies and things that are incorrect. I hope this ends, because you're right, it's going to take us a couple years mentally to get over Donald Trump, because what he's created is this false narrative of distrust and falsehoods.
Oh, it's a
and
cult.
it's
It's
a
literally
cult, and
almost a cult
we have to
mentality.
get off of it. And I think Michelle Weiner, is she, do we have a question, or is Michelle? She's joining us.
Beautiful, perfect, great. Listen,
Great.
and I hope Michelle, oh, there she is.
There she is.
Fantastic.
Hi.
Good morning.
I'm in my car still.
Oh.
Perfect. Listen, besides being one of my favorite people in the world, and you are, Michelle also happens to be about one of the busiest people in the world. Seriously, mom, partner, unbelievable cannabis clinician. And listen, as I told Ruta, I get to do this introduction because there's very few people really in the world that I do enjoy more than this specific person. And we come from different backgrounds and different areas of the country, but in a lot of ways, she's sister to me, accepted me into Florida when I came down here, and was somebody in the community who's been so helpful to me, and a mentor, and a mentor educationally to me, pain management trained, me just being simple emergency clinician, of course, and with chronic pain being such a major part of our practice, I refer to Michelle often. To the extent of assisting me. So welcome. It's such an honor to have you in the green room. The fact that you and I are together, listen, we got to be careful, I guess, because Michelle sits on the medical marijuana advisory committee with me at the state level. So we have our sunshine laws, but I can't imagine anything more open than this, Michelle. So I think we can probably talk about any topic that we want to, but we've had to be careful in our discussions because we do, right? We shook our heads at that early.
Yeah, well, and the thing I want to comment on is that you're pretty much the other half of me. You're the ER doctor, much more comfortable with the emergency type of things. You're a little bit more into politics, and you kind of open your mouth on the times when I'm a little bit, more nervous too. So we really partner well with each other in terms of what we're doing for the whole industry in Florida. So thank you for having me.
Honor and pleasure. So give us a little bit about your background and more specifically, and Don's going to put up the study so that everybody out there who is a patient who wants to participate in one of the officially sanctioned studies that we're allowed to do down in Florida.
Right. So this is actually really a big study because the Consortium for Medical Marijuana Research Grants is through University of Florida, and we got $75,000 to study seniors or people over 60 with pain that are taking medical marijuana. And obviously that's a huge thing in Florida because the demographics, clearly we have, the most amount of elderly people, and chronic pain is the most common reason that people use medical marijuana, yet it's not a standalone condition, right? So the fact that they decided to give money to this one, because many people applied. I actually applied for another research one through the same consortium, and there's other people I know who applied as well. So the fact that they chose this is really wonderful, because it means that they're looking at elderly and they're looking at chronic pain. And the study is basically assessing many things. It's looking at, have they ever used cannabis before? Where are they getting their education from? Is it from the dispensary? Is it from the physician? What routes are they taking? What milligrams are they using? Do they think it's effective? So all of these really great questions about, the whole scope of it, from the start to finish. Is it helping their pain? How does it relate to other pharmaceuticals? Are they taking less medications because of it? And I think at the end, we actually give a certain amount of people a specific interview where we get more information about their treatment plan and how they're feeling. And then I think we give like a $25 gift card for people who fill out the survey also. So there's a QR code there. And if you put your phone up to the QR code, or right underneath is a website. And so it's really very high tech now. You just go right to that, fill out the survey, and it will help us a lot. But thank you for helping.
Michelle, I have a quick question, because some of the backlash that a lot of medical marijuana, like quote unquote trials or research, basically go into how you feel, and they actually don't go into clinical data, like into like dosing and milligrams and things like that. Is this research study going to hit that at all?
Yeah, well, that's such a good point that we kind of go back and forth with. So it's going to hit exactly what they're taking. And I know I had a study I did at FIU where we used cannabis as a substitute for opioids in the chronic pain patients. And in that study, 20% completely weaned off of their opioids, and there was almost 45% that really weaned down. And we didn't actually ask questions specifically like, what's the route, what's the milligrams, what's the ratio. We didn't get that because it was just too much information. This one, we're actually getting all of the details there. And at the same time, and I'm sure Barry agrees with me, because it's such, cannabis is just so versatile, and the fact that we all have our own endocannabinoid system and it's really personalized medicine, it's kind of like an interesting thing, because it's taking the Western medicine approach and saying, okay, how many milligrams and what's the ratio and what's the route for chronic pain, but it's not like that, and then people have been using cannabis for years. People have never used it. Some people work, some people, can't be impaired. Let's say some people are never impaired. So it's interesting because we're trying to get that information, but in reality, how are we really going to have a, let's say, FDA approved, pharmaceutical for chronic pain that's cannabis, right? What does that look like? A 10 milligram 1-to-1 capsule? That's not going to work for everybody, obviously. So we're getting this information, and I would love it if we got this information and just saw that there's no consistency. Then it would really show how, the goal of cannabis medicine is really to give the patient a little bit of hand holding and education so that they're able to start it on their own, then empower them to take their health into their own hands, and how are they using cannabis, and make it like their own treatment plan, as opposed to getting used to the physician just reflexively giving you a prescription and doing all the work for you. But we're asking all these questions, but I'm hoping that we get a lot of diversity in the answers so that we can really show how it's difficult. It's not Western medicine. It's not, the plant is just an amazing plant that, affects everybody differently. And we want them to be able to use it the way that it works best for them, not just a cookie cutter way.
That's such an interesting perspective, Michelle, because usually in a study, you're looking for, one specific thing. And, I think our colleague, Dr. Mike, McKenzie, of course, speaks the best to this in his lectures, because big pharma wants those research studies, and other doctors want those double-blinded.
They want it. We were on that call
studies.
last week. We heard it.
We
the
were.
Physicians themselves were like, "Well, we want like
that's what they want, and it's so difficult to give that to them, because we whole plant clinicians don't want to isolate our cannabinoids. We want to know what our cannabinoids are. We want to know the percentages of our minor cannabinoids, our terpenes, our flavonoids. But cannabis is plant-based medicine, right? And, Michelle, one of the things I love about Dr. Weiner is that, she's a half a generation behind me. I would say a whole generation, but we'll just go half. But the point is, Michelle's going to be around practicing cannabis medicine longer than I, and also other plant-based substances. And, just give a little shout out to your psilocybin and your psychedelic project going on down there too, Michelle. And, but my point is, we're only starting to scratch the surface of these substances because they haven't been studied.
Right. And I've actually learned a lot more about cannabis by learning about some of the psychedelics. And now I use ketamine in my practice, and we do ketamine assisted psychotherapy. And we're really, it's funny because we're really doing it for pain, because pain is really, pain is emotional, pain is mental, pain is physical. It's not just, what people used to think, you're a pain doctor and we're treating the actual tissue damage. It's not that anymore. People are suffering, people are in pain. And a lot of it is the emotional experience related to their chronic pain, or they develop physical pain because of some emotional events or trauma, right? And that's why the ketamine has really changed the way I practice even cannabis a little bit, because it teaches you that pain is in your consciousness, and how are you going to change your pain unless you change the perspective in which you're viewing what's happening to you. And that's also the beauty of cannabis, is that you can really say it's not happening to me, and if it is, well, I could I could just have a new perspective on it. And in an instant, you take a inhalation of some form of cannabis, and that's it. It just it gets you out of that rut. It's an amazing, cannabis is an amazing medicine. And even if psychedelics, become legal and help a lot with mental health, to me, cannabis is always going to be, like kind of the starting point, the bread and butter, what really started this revolution into personalized medicine and opening up people's minds. And really, we all need to see the evidence, even though the anecdotes are not enough. We all need to see the evidence, definitely. However, clearly what's happening right now is just not working. Like the fact that everybody uses this model of take SSRIs for depression and, take benzos for anxiety. It's not a neurotransmitter chemical imbalance type of thing. There's a lot more going on there. And so I'm forever thankful that, cannabis became legal 4 years ago, and that I was able to even to use it in my practice. Who knows? I could have been at a different time in my life, and it wouldn't have been for me to expose my patients to. So really life-changing.
No, I feel the same way, because I was in my gap year, after my ER years, and I was able to read, educate myself. I wasn't encumbered by hospital system, right, or anything else. If I was making my living in an ER environment, I may not have been able to make the decisions that I made to get out of conventional healthcare and take a different path. We all know that. And you still exist within a whole bunch of different environments, right, Michelle? University environment. Do you have hospital staff privileges at this point?
Yeah, I do pain management still at some hospitals. I am at Health South, or in Compass, it's a rehab facility. But my practice, we have 8 physicians. It's very heavy on inpatient. We get a lot of our patients from the hospital. I'm a little different. I do a lot more of the cannabis and more ketamine and less interventional, which is great, working with the other physicians, because they feed me a lot. And what's so funny is that I basically get the refractory patients, and I'm sure you do too. It's kind of like, well, I have cancer, or I have Parkinson's, or I have pain, and my doctor doesn't know what to do. And it's so sad that we get them late, but at the same time, that's just the model right now. It's whatever is approved and whatever the physician feels comfortable with. And then if it's not working, we get them. It's too bad we don't get them a little earlier.
Yeah, we're the last arrow. We're the last arrow out of the quiver, so to speak. And I think you and I are working every day to make sure that we come out mid-quiver, so to speak, or early first. Wouldn't that be something, And once again, what's one of the great things about Michelle and interacting with doctors like Michelle around the state is that she does come from a different model, surrounded by other clinicians. Have you seen a difference in your pain management colleagues, Michelle, over the 4 years?
Have you seen a change of
right, perceptions and how the other docs view what you do, and how willing they are to work with you at this point as compared to 4 years ago?
Well, I think obviously we all know it's all about the education. We could just say education all day long, but it's not just the word education, it's what you're speaking about, and the passion that I think the two of us bring to the education is really why people are able to hear and listen to us and actually open up to it. Otherwise, they just hear it as like, well, we have an endocannabinoid system, and and they kind of like intellectualize it, as opposed to seeing really what's going on day to day. So I think that over time, people have really opened up to it because they've seen wonderful things in their patients, or their patients are reporting to them, they're using cannabis and they feel much better. But I think that there a lot of physicians are also frustrated with medicine these days. They really are. So they're just getting to that point where they said, well, maybe if there's not enough evidence that this works, what we're currently doing is really not working either. So I have to be open-minded to what potentially could help my patients. And the fact that it's a plant, it's non-toxic. I mean, it's ridiculous already how the other thing is we have to give patients hope. A lot of times, you just say to them, okay, you have this condition, and you kind of partner with them. Like we're forming a relationship, they're forming a relationship with the plant. And that I think is about empowering the patient. And that's so important these days because people feel unbelievably disconnected and they need something to connect with, whether it's going to be nature, themselves, they just need that time to kind of reflect or change their perspective. So it's a perfect time, especially during the pandemic. And, thank God we have telemedicine, but, a lot of new patients need help as well. And more than ever, like, people are more stressed and that fight or flight type of feeling constantly. So, I really have seen, thank God that cannabis is available right now.
How are you finding like patients like as far as education? Because sometimes here, especially for patients that have never tried it, they seem to be like so overwhelmed by the plant itself and the amount of knowledge and whether it's routes of administration and how like you monitor like what dosing you're going to start with and things. Are you finding your patients sometimes get a little bit overwhelmed, like especially new ones?
Yeah. The thing is, I remember 4 years ago when I started, I was overwhelmed and then I would overwhelm them, right? Because I wanted to give them enough information so they felt that it was truly a medicine. And at the same time, I wanted to make them feel safe, but I didn't know what was going to work for them. So I've kind of made in my head a very simple algorithm for most people, depending on the condition or depending on their previous use with cannabis. And that algorithm is not anything special, but it's just something to tell them to say, okay, let's start here. And then let's see how you feel based on this. And like I'm big with the one-to-one, like for a lot of the chronic pain patients, I'll just, start them off on the one-to-one tincture, let's say 5 milligrams in the evening. I'm really big on that because it gives me an idea how sensitive they are to THC. It makes them feel comfortable that it's not just THC by itself. I really use the CBD to mitigate any of the intoxication that they may be hesitant about. Or, the problem is actually the one-to-one is often not in stock, and I found that recently that a lot of patients I had a patient yesterday, she can't find indica capsules. I had another one, they can't find a one-to-one tincture. So some of the more common things I really feel people are using, but even as many dispensaries as we have now, they're still not able to keep things in stock. So I'll even tell them buy a CBD tincture, buy a THC hybrid tincture, make your own one-to-one, and then they get overwhelmed with that. But I just started to simplify it for them and just say, all right, let's start here. If you're really hesitant, we'll start at 2.5 or,
And that's why we fight so hard to make sure that we maintain the quality supply of those medical, right, cannabis products. And as we go forward towards legal adult use, right, which will happen in Florida at some point, that Michelle and I are committed. And people say, why do you sit on the committee? And why do you do what you do? And I have 5 reasons, and they're all the same: protect medical, protect medical, protect medical, protect medical, and protect medical. Because what goes on in society will always go on in society. And we're here, Michelle, as you remember, what was going on a year ago in the unregulated vape market?
Oh, the lipoid pneumonia epidemic. Yeah.
People were dying. Right.
Right.
So to me, we're safety officers first for society and educators, but for our medical patients, we need to protect those one-to-one tinctures,
well, this is
all those other products.
I think I don't know if you've done it or you're doing it, Michelle, but like we really and I know Barry's addressed it, but I think that's one of the biggest issues like for patients is there's no consistency of product, because you do start to get used to something and using it and you go in and the next thing you know, it's not there. And for a patient, it's hard. It's very difficult, especially if they're a new patient and they're trying something and all of a sudden, like you said, there's no one-to-one left. And all of a sudden they're like, what am I supposed to take? And I think the dispensaries have to, I think the physicians really need to address this with the dispensaries, because as a medicine, I mean, if you're out of Coumadin and you're a cardiology patient, that's a problem, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not
So-
gonna take 8 more aspirin or something
yeah,
like
but
that.
the
you
thing
know?
is, but there's consistency in the medicine being available. And with the cannabis, we've heard it in the past too from our patients that all of a sudden they're used to something and they go in and it's not there. And I think that's something that's really has to be addressed by the physicians to the dispensaries in a major way, because truly, if you are treating it as a medicine, it has to be available to your patients.
And getting
It
back
has
to the
be.
research, Michelle, that may be very well something that comes up, you know, and I'm interested in this study because yes, you do that and you put it in, but then there are oral interviews that do come up, right? That is great because that'll give, I think, the interviewers more of a chance to find out some of those type of things, you know, from patients, you know, Ruta, for sure. And Michelle, just one more heads up on the study. So this was actually money from the $75 that patients pay for their cards, right? That puts the pool of money in for the research. So there's some usage of that money. Hallelujah.
Right, exactly.
Right?
So people are, so people know, because for a while they were saying, well, where is the money going? You know,
pop that up one more time, Don, by the way.
Sure.
Let's put the study up one more time because I really want to encourage, and we do have plenty of patients who watch. I really want to encourage the patients in Florida to participate in these studies. It's what's going to advance the program for sure. And it's going to advance the reforms of cannabis in all ways. And, you know, let's make sure that that includes expungements and, you know, undoing a lot of racial and social injustice issues. But fundamentally, we want to make sure that it gets done educationally with common sense. And once again, with that research focus that we know is going to be what we really need to bring it further into medicine.
So Michelle, we have to wrap up. So we want some parting thoughts from you on where you see cannabis going over maybe the year of 2021 and as far as research and development and as a program itself in the state of Florida, if you can give some of your insight.
I see dispensaries probably opening up, you know, to other cannabinoids. Like right now we see CBN at True Leaf and I think Liberty, perhaps, you know, I think THCA at True Leaf. So, you know, there's other cannabinoids. I hope to see a little bit more information on the terpenes, that the terpene profiles are more accessible and that patients, we actually did a survey at University of Miami, and that was a big thing that patients wanted. They were interested in learning more about terpenes, and we really don't know enough about dosing and routes and, you know, how to use the terpenes properly. But I see more information coming up with terpenes, definitely getting away a little bit from the indica sativa, and then some interesting delivery routes like the nano edibles and the nano powder, and, you know, some other interesting routes of administration just to kind of to help people. Like, for example, taking, if you want to vape or smoke less, you know, the nano powder is a great product, or, you know, to put it into a edible is really kind of interesting because the problem with edibles, they take so long to kick in. But if you make it into a nano particle size, it actually has a faster onset. So I think there's going to be interesting delivery methods, more cannabinoids and some more terpene information. My whole thing is I just want things to be safe. And I've heard too many times that patients have flour with mold on it. And I don't want to make like a big deal here, but, you know, it's really, that's the most important reason why we have a legal system, is that things are safe and lab tested. So that definitely has to be addressed. And then consistency, the fact that if they see a product that's very popular, they need to carry that. You know, there's so many people that find their medicine and then they get frustrated that they can't find it again. So that's what I would like to see a little more of.
Excellent.
Listen, as I said, having Michelle on the front lines with me is a pleasure every day. I look forward to the collaboration as we go forward. Listen, we got a tough state house coming up this year, of course, right? And once again, I think going into the legislative session, we want to maintain what we have. We're going to probably fight a battle on the 10% THC cap again, you know, perhaps. They're not going to be willing to really give us a lot of the job protections, right? A lot of the state by state reciprocity issues. Maybe we can keep telehealth for recertifications going, Michelle. That would be a great thing. I know benefit to you and your patients. So there's some simple things that I hope we can achieve legislatively. And listen, there's going to be more dispensaries. The Supreme Court case also will be coming up, which may demolish the entire vertical system. One of the opinions I've heard is that if the Supreme Court case says that, you know what, this has always been unconstitutional. And there are attorneys that believe that's going to happen. They're going to have to kick it back to the legislature, Michelle, for them to rewrite the entire MMTC system, which means they're not going to deal with our issues at all. Right.
Yeah,
So,
well,
listen,
I'm with you. I'm with you, obviously, on the 10% THC and on the telemedicine. I know we've talked about the reciprocity before, but you know, we'll see about that. But there's a lot of things we want changed, adding, you know, conditions to our list, definitely. But I don't know, I don't foresee that really happening. But that's what this research is all about.
Indeed. And thank you so much for
Yeah,
leading
thank
the
you for
charge
leading
that
the
way and doing things that I myself know that I'm not capable of doing. So love you,
Well,
Michelle.
thank you for
Be
having
well.
the
Best
show.
you and
This
your
is
family.
amazing.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much for
Thank you for
coming up.
having
It's
me.
been great. Thank you.
See you soon.
All right.
Advocates hug from
Okay.
afar.
See everyone next week.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for